What is going on, everybody? It is Bush Fishing or Teo or ST Marine. Today's video we're going to be working on this 1963 EVINRUDE 18 horse. A little older than what we were working on, but I think this video will help a lot of people. So this motor right here, the guy specifically came to me from a long distance away to have fixed these running issues. The thing will start up and run fine. Once he's on the water under a load, it seems to like bog out, and I kind of have an idea of what it is, but I'm going to show you guys how to kind of diagnose everything on it, go through the whole system and see what you're really looking for, because it's pretty much the same process. Obviously, when you have different symptoms, you can kind of diagnose it quicker if you see it a lot, but this video will be going through everything on this motor, including compression, fuel system, timing, spark, the whole nine. And once we get her diagnosed, we will order some parts and repair it for this gentleman. It's winter now, so nobody's in a rush, but I do have surprisingly a lot of jobs coming in. If you guys are new here, I'm Teo. I run ST Marine and Bush Fishing, and it seems like we're switching out of fishing videos and doing a whole lot more outboard repair inboards. If you guys haven't watched, I just finished rebuilding an inboard engine, and we got a lot more of that coming. I'm gonna start bringing you guys with for everything. Before we start, if you guys want ST Marine merch, Bush Fishing merch, first link down in the description. Got these new sick hats, fully embroidered. These aren't out there yet, but come January 1st, I will have a new website up. If you guys are in kind of southeastern Wisconsin, like Lake Country area, and you want work done or something, the website will be up. There's a form you can fill out, and scheduling will be super easy, and I will have these hats out by then. But enough jibber jabber, let's get into this. Alrighty, let's get straight into it. There's a little release tab in the back of the cowl. Pop that off and get the cowling out and out of the way. This looks extremely similar to an old 20 horse I had. I had some really good videos on that, and a 35 horse. This is a 2-cylinder, so you got your 2 spark plugs back here. Single carb feeding both cylinders. Extremely simple design. Now this motor has been worked on already. I have the work order. The guy claims he did do the fuel lines. You can see these fuel lines are new. Backing around here, and he rebuilt the carb right out the gate. The linkage is all terrible. I mean, these plug wires are hitting over here, but oh, he also did a compression test. I don't know, apparently he got it running and shipped it out, but not good enough apparently. So first thing we're going to start with, just getting an overall idea of the health of the motor, since it does spin over, is we're going to do a compression test. If you guys have never done that, first of all, pop off your plug wire leads. Make sure you remember which one they go to. You can switch them around. Grab a spark plug socket. These are going to be the 13/16 ones. Pump these two out, and then I'll show you the compression tester tool. Alrighty, at the back of the motor, hopefully you guys can see that a little better. Pop your socket on with your extremely large, ooh, nice and loose too. Crack those two loose. Should come out by hand. So looking at the top cylinder, these I do believe come with the, oh, you guys can't even see any of that. So from the factory, these are supposed to come surface gap. These are not, and it is very black. So we know that it's getting fuel, perhaps too much fuel, or perhaps it's down a cylinder. But that's top spark plug. We'll pop the bottom one out and look for any differences. And you can see right out the gate, our bottom plug is white. So most likely, the reasoning for this is the bottom one's not getting any fuel, not getting fuel to that lower cylinder. It could also be a spark issue. Onward. Alrighty, so you guys go to your local store, Harbor Freight, whatever, you'll get a compression test kit that looks like this. The kind that I use are the automotive ones. This is just what I have here. Gives you a bunch of different adapters for different size spark plug holes. We're going to be using this one with this adapter because this is what fits in. We're going to use the gauge. All you do is, it's a quick release, pop that on. Actually, we're gonna thread it in the hole first. We're gonna do top cylinder first. What we're looking for is numbers over 100 PSI, and we want them to be even. We don't want the top one at like 120 PSI and the bottom cylinder at say like 80 PSI or less. So with that in, pop the gauge on, clear it out, and now we're just gonna yank it probably 3 times. And we're gonna be doing this at wide open throttle to give it the best chance. So in forward gear, wide open throttle. Doing that, we have just about 60 PSI. Not good. All right, now all we're gonna do is move down to the bottom cylinder. Same thing, twist her in, or thread her in. Make sure the O-ring is seated. Get this guy back on, make sure you clear it out. And we do the same thing. Give that one an extra one. It is spinning super easy over, and that thing pretty much the exact same, 70 PSI. So that's not good. That's where a lot of power is going. That kind of changes things as to what we're looking for, but I'm actually not too sure how much I trust this gauge. Later on, I will do that with a different gauge. The reason I'm not entirely worried about that is because I feel like I remember having issues with this in the past. So for now, we're kind of going to take that with a grain of salt. It does pull over really easy though. And it looks like these head bolts have been pulled off, the paint's off of them. But nevertheless, next up, we're going to look for spark. Alrighty, so I did grab a different gauge and spin it a couple times. And you can see there, right around 80 PSI. So not good. Alrighty, next up, we're going to check for spark. So all I'm going to do, I do not have a spark tester because I'm super unprepared today, but what we're gonna do is pull on the cable a little bit, figure out which way the flywheel spins when you're pulling it. We gotta have it neutral for this, otherwise it won't spark. And you're gonna grab your wire. You might get shocked, it's not too bad. And we're gonna hold it up here next to the metal. And hopefully you guys will be able to see this, but spinning it around, I highly doubt you guys are going to be able to see that, but it is sparking. Now, we're not looking for how good the spark is right now, obviously, because we're just cranking it by hand and it needs cranking speed to make a better spark, because this does not have a coil setup like you would normally have, but... Whoa! Me. Yeah, so it does spark. So we know both cylinders are at least sparking, and with both cylinders sparking, we know most likely it's either going to be a compression issue or a fuel issue. Both cylinders are low, but they are kind of even, so I'm pushing more towards the fuel, but we definitely have to do something with the compression. Alright, so now we know we've got two cylinders that are sparking. Let's check the fuel filter. It's clear so you can kind of see, but all you got to do is pop this end off, slide it down, up and around, whatever you got to do to get that out. Hopefully I'm not blocking your guys' view too much, but then we can pull down this glass bowl and have a look at the fuel in it. Try my best to show you guys, but looking at that down there, you guys can see there is a bunch of stuff in it, but the filter's doing what it's supposed to do, which is stopping it from passing through. Alrighty, so with the fuel filter kind of clean, you'll see on this side we will get our fuel in from right over here. That is where it hooks up with the tank. We'll follow that down and underneath the carburetor, underneath the main power head, and it comes into the fuel pump. So this is our fuel pump with our very interesting gasket behind, which doesn't make me feel confident at all. It looks like it's got new gaskets inside of it. This uses vacuum off the engine, so when the piston goes back down, it'll create a vacuum and move a diaphragm, what's in between here, one way, and it'll force fuel to be sucked in here, and on the next stroke, when it loses the vacuum, it pushes it out into this line. This fuel line, I believe, originally routes a different way, but it comes around the back of the motor here, and following it down and around, it goes into the input port on the fuel filter, which we just cleaned out. We just popped this end off, popped the glass out, dropped it. Now it is a replaceable filter. It looks caked in shit, and I am suspecting that this is part of a maybe fuel delivery issue, but without having the tank here, I can't really prove that. And then we follow it down here, and it goes right down there into the bottom of the carburetor. The next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop this carburetor off. To do that, we gotta get rid of this linkage. So on the front of the motor down here, you have a lean and rich, and then a lean and rich on the high-speed jet. So this goes directly into the high-speed jet, which is at the bottom, and it moves the needle in and out, which gives it more and less fuel at wide open, and this one is for idle. So this will adjust how it runs at idle, whether it's lean or rich, and this will adjust that wide open, and then we've got our choke here. The choke closes that inner butterfly, so to restrict airflow to force more fuel in for cold starts and stuff like that. To get the linkage out, these are all pretty much just push fittings, and we'll pop these off. We'll pop out that choke linkage. We're gonna have to undo this screw, which is right here, to get the choke linkage out and free, and then we will do this linkage and pop this cap off. And we'll get the carburetor out and get it on the bench so we can look at it. Alrighty, so you guys missed out on that one. Here's our carburetor. It's what it looks like. I popped out the adjuster. So how this works is the end of this goes into the jet and it stops fuel from getting through. So this end threads in and you thread this in manually. Now you get 180 degrees to adjust it, so it's important that it's set up right from the beginning. When you turn it in, it moves this closer so it shuts off, and it shuts off air, so it makes it richer, and when you take it out, it lets more air go in through it, so it makes it more lean. Now with this out, I drain the carburetor just because I have a flame right there. We're gonna pop the bowl off. The bowl is where all the fun happens. So there's gonna be 5 screws down here. Crack them loose and get them off. I like to do this on shop towels. We'll pop these screws off, and what we're looking for in the bowl is debris. We're looking for anything kind of sitting on the bottom near the jets, stuff like that, and we're looking to see that the float is installed properly, because on these, the older ones, before they had the tab that stops it from being put in upside down, you can put them in upside down. And when you do that, the symptoms will kind of be surging. So the bowl will fill up, you'll go wide open, it'll run wide open for a second, and then kind of start to die out. And then the bowl will refill, it'll rev up, and then do the same thing over and over again. The reasoning for that is the bowl is filling, but it's filling at a lower level than what it should be. So it's not entirely filling. And then you're using up all that fuel, it revs up, and then you have to wait for it to refill up. Believe me, I've done it. So with those 6 out, we're just gonna kind of lightly crack this off, and holy shit. So the bowl down here is pretty clean. There is a piece of debris, but look at that float. That baby is scaly, and it's just flaking away. So I'm gonna assume that there is a chunk of that stuck in a jet. Also, holding it upside down, our needle's stuck. So underneath here, there's a needle that stops fuel from coming in. How this works is it's upside down right now. This is right side up. So right now, you imagine the bowl's on here, there's no fuel in it. When it starts filling with fuel, this thing will start to come up, and when it comes up, it will shut off fuel. So bowl's full, no more fuel can get in. As you use it, this will drop, fill, and it kind of modulates itself. Very smart idea. But with our float looking like that, you're obviously gonna have some issues. So all along the top here, there's just debris everywhere. The rest of it looks clean, but with how cracked this float is, I can see into the float. Oh, so I'm assuming what's going on is the float is filling up with fuel and then it's saturating. So we can go even deeper. We're gonna take a little pick, and we're gonna go to the end of here. There's a small end and a big end. You're gonna push on the pin, pull the pin out, set it down, and lift straight out. And look how fucking nasty that float is. And then, if you're gentle, we'll get the float needle. So this is what stops the fuel from coming in. When it's up like this, shuts off fuel, and then when it comes down, when the float comes down, it opens up and lets fuel in. With all of that being said, this baby's gonna need a carb kit, and I'm gonna assume a fuel filter. Now, obviously, if this was my own motor, I would see that, get the parts on order for that, and right away start diving into compression. I have to make a phone call the guy, let him know what I found, send him some pictures, and then I will move and see if he wants me to diagnose the compression. I mean, even spinning this over, barely pushing any air out, and I don't have a bore scope here. But I think what I'm gonna end up doing is bypassing the fuel filter and putting one of these in. These are much easier to see, much easier to get parts for, and you'll be able to verify whether or not it's plugged or not, and then you can just, I don't know if you can take these apart, but super cheap to replace. We'll also be getting a carb kit, rebuilding that, and you guys couldn't hear me just then, but spoke to the guy on the phone. He said go ahead with it. These are so easy to pop off, little 2-stroke heads. We're gonna take off these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bolts. Pop the head off. I have one sitting over there for it, and a head gasket. Could be head gasket, could be rings, but he said look into it, so we're gonna look into it. So let's pop these bolts off and get this head off. Most of these were loose, a couple of them were extremely tight. Wasn't torqued in sequence. With that last bolt out, oh, she's oily. Boy, it's on lock. We're gonna grab a little mallet, and we're just gonna pop from the top. And what we wanna do is we wanna retain the head gasket so we can see what the head gasket looks like, because that is a very possible source of failure. So, looking at it right now, it doesn't look awful. I'll hold this up for you guys to see. It's definitely, it's like there's literally sealant on this gasket. Why would you put sealant on the gasket? Like it's like Vaseline, it's like grease. And it's around the cylinders. I'm thinking that this has a failed head gasket. I'm gonna put this on the bench for now because I kind of want to try and get this off in one piece and look at it. I'm gonna roll the cylinders around. So this one's at top dead center. That ain't good. So hopefully you guys can, I'll try and hold this straight. But you can see how much play the piston has. The rings are definitely worn out. Bottom one's just got oil coming straight through. Why there's even oil in there? Yeah, the bottom one's worse. And there is a considerable amount of scoring on the cylinder walls. So if we were looking for perfection here, we would rebuild this motor. There's fuel coming in, so we know there's fuel in the top cylinder. The bottom one is just literally straight oil, which I'm assuming is fogging oil. I can see the fuel pumps working because every time I rotate it around, it's forcing some through. What I also can do is put my thumb over this and spin it around, and it's pushing up on my thumb. That's where we're at. Nice, we got her fully diagnosed. I think for sure it needs a head gasket, but it is gonna be losing some compression through the rings. Like, she's loose. But it will still run if we clean this up well enough and put a new fucking head gasket on it. Alrighty, now I'll play the intro I recorded before. That's probably gonna be it for me today. It's a short little video. Obviously, I'm not going to show you guys rebuilding it yet. I need to get the parts in, but this was just kind of diagnosing it, how I go about diagnosing. I wish I could be popping that head off to look for compression or even putting my borescope in, but I do not have that. Yeah, but that's pretty much the basics of it. What we looked for is compression right away, spark on all cylinders, and at the spark plugs. And I'm assuming that that shitty float has something to do with not getting fuel on that bottom cylinder, and I'm assuming that that bottom cylinder not firing is what's giving him the kind of bogginess once you give her some throttle. So, with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Check out the merch down below, and soon, after January 1st, the website will be up. But before then, I will probably have the parts for this, and we'll be rebuilding it. And maybe he wants me to pop that off, and we'll see. We'll get another rebuild this year. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.